Mohammed is the CEO of a newly incubated entity in Dubai, focused on fair trade and consumer protection. Mohammed, can you please give us a few introduction words on yourself?
Well, Assalamu alaikum, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for putting me on the stage. Number one, so I thought you will start. You are the private sector, so we're here to
You look
support.
much better than me.
Okay, I look much better. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Khulfan. So basically, I head a new entity called Dubai Corporation for Consumer Protection and Fair Trade. And if you hear about the fair trade element, it's a new element coming to play here in the United Arab Emirates and also in the region. And the reason for having that element as part of the new corporation is to make sure that everybody who works in Dubai here has to work fairly, and we try to balance between big sharks and smaller fishes in here.
Thank you, Mohammed. And Fadi Ghandour goes without introduction. I think most people in this room have met or have engaged with Fadi before. He's one of the seasoned entrepreneurs in the region and the founder of Aramex and Wamda. Fadi, can you give us a few words, please?
Well, I don't know what I need to say. I would say that I first landed in the city in October, I was telling Mohammed earlier, in October 1982.
That was before I was born.
Before he was born. So if anybody calls me grandfather of anything, it's because I'm just older than most of the people sitting with me on the panel here. I've been around for a while, so I do early stage investing and in tech in the region. I've been doing that for the past 25 years, while I was also CEO and co-founder of Aramex. I mean, and so I'm part of what happened in the city over the past 40 years.
Thank you, Fadi. And last but not least, Kuntz, who's currently the Chief Strategy, Innovation and Ventures Officer at the Dubai International Financial Center.
Great, maybe a few words. Nice to meet everybody. Many I know already. In my role, obviously, we're looking at driving the strategy for the DFC forward, but we're also working a lot on unlocking new ventures and supporting the fund. Setup of the fund was one part of it, our innovation hub, and I think we'll talk about a lot of those things in the next couple of minutes. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. How are we planning to improve the current economic situation of the UAE, improve the current environment for competition, and protect founders and startups alike moving forward?
Well, if you look to any city or any country in the world, you will find a city starts from bottom, going slowly up, where things are very high accelerated when it comes to either businesses or policy regulations. And then it hovers in top of where the area needs to be looked at and have a fair treatment between private sector and a government sector. And we try through policies nowadays to enrich the relationship between private sector and government using too many elements. So basically, we looked at the IP law to enforce. We are working extensively with Dubai Future Foundation on that domain. We'd love to have Dubai as the capital of the intellectual property registration. The second thing is we look at the protecting consumers who are dealing with the city. So we'd love to have the trust between consumers and businesses in here. So we try to have a more of a policy in that regards. The other side of the coin is we look at the B2B too. So it is not only fair trade, but sometimes there are a bit of disputes happen between two businesses. They love to continue working with each other, but sometimes between those two companies' management, they don't find a mutual ground to start with. So where we come and try to help those companies. And the last bit of the equation where the newly philosophy came to the picture, it is the fair trade. So we know that if any economy would like to sustain its footprint in any arena, they need to look at the market from the fair trade point of view. So we protect the smaller guys against the bigger guys, and we try to encourage bigger guys to work with the smaller guys. And that is where the government tries to play and glue the relationship between different domains.
Thank you, Mohammed. Fadi, I'm sure hearing that an IP law is going to be improved and accelerated in the UAE is something exciting for you. I'm sure you've come across a lot of startups that struggled with their registration here in the UAE. From your experience as both entrepreneur and as an investor, can you give us some of your key policy and governmental initiatives that you think are needed to improve the ecosystem?
Thank you for that. First, I want to congratulate my friend Khalfan and everyone that's involved in putting together this fund. I've seen it from the very early days, and finally it's here. It's in time, and it is going to be really cementing the leadership of the city and in making the ecosystem continue to grow as it has been growing for the past 10, 15 years. So Khalfan, congratulations, and you get all our support. And now, just to add a bit to Khalfan's worries sometimes. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, since the question is about the regulatory environment, and we've come a long way. So to start with, so I'm not one that complains, but to make sure that the ecosystem works, startups really, and most of you are, all of you are in the business. So we need access to capital, access to markets, and a regulatory environment that enables these startups to actually hit the ground running with the minimal amount of friction. That hasn't been solved. So to be honest, and here we're all, this is a family that wants to make things happen here. So the friction is still there, specifically on fintech. And fintech is happening in the UAE. It's happening globally. There are efforts, but there is, I see, a lack. If we want to continue to run fast, to get the serious, very fast growth in a very crazy environment that we see globally. So, it's not easy. At least we need to solve the things that we are in control of here in our city. And so I'm not going to discuss the specifics of what these are. You all know them. There needs to be probably a better dialogue among the venture investors, among government regulators, and the startups. The central bank needs to sit with us at the table so that we are able to address their challenges, their worries, so that we can make our startups grow and grow very fast. So they're raising money, but they are stuck on growth because there is that friction. So that needs to be addressed. But have we come a long way? Oh boy, we have come a long way. Is there a lot to be done? Sure. Cost of doing business also needs to be addressed. The licensing process and where it ends in terms of cost of licensing also is an issue. You want to bring talent here. Lots of talent is coming here, but talent also is not high net worth individuals. They are in need to be in a place where they're not only enjoying the city, but maybe saving a little bit. So, these are all issues that we face all the time, but we're busy. The city is busy. And we just need to have an institutional framework where everybody sits at the table and addresses the issues. And we put a timeline to what is solvable and what's not. Where are the bottlenecks that can be handled and where the bottlenecks cannot be handled, so that we are all aware with our expectations, and it helps everyone. Managing expectations is core here.
Thank you, Fadi.
I'm optimistic,
Yeah.
despite all that.
I think you gave Christian a very good opening, actually. So Christian, Fadi just described to us how we've evolved a lot from where we were to where we are today, but clearly we still have a long road ahead to be perfectly optimal for startups and VCs alike to be able to operate and invest in the market. Can you just take us through the journey that DIFC has gone through over the last few years and how it has contributed towards the digital economy?
No, happy to. I'm going to change a bit what I wanted to say, because I think Fadi obviously is spot on. First of all, I want to thank all of you for doing what you're doing despite those challenges, right? And I wanted to start talking about the long way we came. But I think one thing to start with, to add what you said, Fadi, is I think we as a whole community in the UAE, as a business, government, startup community, venture capital community, we need to change our view of risk. The risk is much bigger to not build fast enough. Then, if some startups fail, if we don't have all our licenses and regulations with every single entity that wants to play a role in it, if we're not working together closely. So the definition and the perspective that we look at internally of risk evolved, and I think this is a very important discussion. And that will help solve some of those things, but I think the bigger things. And Khalfan, His Excellency Khalfan, and we all know how much time we're actually spending on trying to solve it, so trust us, we're working on it. It's not easy. It's a culture and it's a mindset shift of looking at this opportunity. And sustainability, which is a priority for this year, makes that very real. If we're not able to solve this, if we're not able to solve the big sustainability ESG problems together, it's going to be a big issue for the whole world, for the whole country. So I think this makes it more real, but I think it's a big topic, and I didn't want to open with it, but I think it's the right conversation to be had. But on the positive side, I think if you think about the role of the digital economy in the UAE, in Dubai, one of the questions was what was the role and what's the role of venture capital? And we all know it plays a big role, but are there some numbers that we can give that kind of indicate that and measure it in some way? One interesting number I came across was between 2018 and 2022, the number of jobs in the UAE workforce in business and finance have grown by 500,000 people. And the number of construction workers have declined by 300,000. So we're seeing a shift from kind of what traditionally was the core of a large part of the economy towards the digital or the knowledge economy. And I think that's one indicator. We've seen venture capital pass in the UAE the $1 billion mark. We've seen in the MENA region passing at the $3 billion mark. There are some challenges now. We've seen Saudi tipping on the $1 billion, and we have to be solving the problems you described to not be outpaced by them, because UAE doubled, MENA tripled, Saudi 7x'd when it comes to venture capital. But it had impact. If I talk about the DIFC, for example, it had impact and it was not a coincidence. For DIFC, our strategy 2030, which we worked on in 2020, and in 2019, and it came live in 2020, just in the time of the pandemic, said the main premises that 60% of future growth for the DIFC and a large part of Dubai will come from the future of finance or the future economies. And so what do we have to build to be able to attract that globally here and unlock this in the regional ecosystem? And so there's a number of things that happened, but it's a journey. In 2016, we had the Dubai Future Foundation established. In 2017, we had the FinTech Hive, the first FinTech license. This is 7 years ago. It's a journey. In the last 3 years, we started seeing that exponential growth slowly picking up by having all of these different elements, this ecosystem you're describing, this trying to solve the big issues coming together. And that's really what gives us confidence. In DIFC, for example, when I joined in 2020, we were around 200 startups, fintech innovation companies. Now we're 700. But the more important thing is we were about 400 people working for them, and now we're over 2,200 people. That's the metric that we're looking at. How do we get more people? And that's where the VC funding, where the VC economy, the community comes into play. How do we fund the right businesses to actually build sustainable long-term businesses that employ thousands of people like Fadi has done?
So based on what Christian was describing, he said the ecosystem of startups has grown from 200 to over 700 in DIFC alone. Clearly, the UAE market is much bigger, and more startups are coming every day. What can you tell us about the role of policymaking, and what type of initiatives can you describe to us today that you're working on to further improve and enhance their lifestyle and also ability to operate in the market?
If you look at the city, Dubai, you'll see every 20 years there's an evolution happens. And within those 20 years, every 20 years, within the boundary of 20 years, you'll find a lot of enhancement. And those enhancement comes from being us as a government officials. We listen more than we talk. And then we engage with bright minds locally, regionally, and internationally to fast track any of the initiatives. Now, if you look at tech, for example, in 2015, the first data law was passed, which is called Dubai Data Law, in 2015. From 2015 until today, keep in mind that we've got 2 years of COVID, but how many policies came out to the market that fosters the growth of tech companies. We've got apart from Dubai data law, we have the data strategy, we have the VARA, we have so many of those different pillars that foster the new era of businesses, where tech is the heart of any business nowadays, and then we take those techs from Dubai International. So what we try to do here is, after we engage with the private sectors, and by the way, most of the city leadership, whether they've been part of the private sector previously, or they have an engagement with the private sector. So basically, when the private sector speaks to us, we understand what they are talking about. And what we do is we take this idea, we study it internally, we look at the pros and cons, and if the pros of this initiative is slightly higher, not necessarily by far, slightly higher than the con, we immediately take this to the central government and speak with them into trying to implement such policies to foster the new tech era. And if sometimes the pros is less than the cons of that strategy, sometimes the central government tells us, let's do it, okay? And then try to enhance it and modify it by that time. And there, where you see so many tech companies are coming in here, and many of you, maybe who've been in this city 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, were thinking that if I want to open a business in the mainland, I need to have 51% of local partnership, okay? I mean, if you look at it, working with Ministry of Economy, working with the federal government, we fast-track this to make 100% ownership is one of the normal practices. Now, at the previous years, like 5 years ago, nobody can hear that if you want to come to Dubai, you come and live in Dubai under your own visa scheme. Now, we've got so many visa schemes. We've got golden visa, talent visa, retirement visa, so many things. And if you look at it, where did we get those ideas from? Do you think we are genius? We are not that genius. But you are genius. You are giving us those ideas which you think that it will help you as a private sector to flourish, whether locally or internationally. And that's where the government is trying to do. Listen, engage, come up, and modify.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think we have a perfect opportunity now, Fadi, to lobby for a new policy change. Any ideas you want to share with us?
Look, one thing you need to say...
We have Khalfan and we have His Excellency Abdullah. Both of them are
is on my side, so and I'm on his side. But let me add one thing here. I mean, and I'm not saying anything new here. I know that the access you have to policymakers in this city is unique. I mean, I've done business through my previous life in Aramex in every single city and country in the region and globally. And I think the access that you get, back to your point on listening, I mean, the listening process, the discussion, the question that you get asked, how can we do things better, is a constant here in Dubai. So whenever I'm invited to any session or do I meet any of the officials in this town, and their question is not, they don't ask me to tell them the good things. They ask me to say, which areas do you think we need to do better? And I think this city is excelling at that. And so we have come a massive long way, and I think Dubai needs to be thought of as pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So the Dubai post-pandemic, even the people that have not visited the city for a year or a year and a half and come back and visit here and see the incredible change that has happened in this town. So absolutely, and the investments, the amount of startups, the new talent that is coming to town is massive. But ask me the question now.
I mean, obviously, Christian talked about the change of risk appetite that we need to adapt to as governments, as people, and as entities in the UAE. So what advice would you give to other government entities and let's call it subsidiaries and quasi-government looking to explore options to invest in venture?
Another thing you need to think about Dubai is this is an entrepreneurial story in and by itself. So the city is entrepreneurial. So talking about risk, from the leadership's promise to do something that we all thought was outlandish to actual implementation is incredible in this city. And I tell anybody that asks me, I say, if you hear an announcement from the leadership in this city, one thing you should know is that this is bankable. It will happen. So the tallest building, the area we are in here, the museum, and so it's a unique city. So in terms of risk, and all of us being in the venture capital space and this fund that we are here, we're in the business of really taking early stage risk to make the ecosystem happen. We are the most patient of investors. We invest at a very early stage, and we sit and wait until the company grows and flourishes and eventually exits, and you return money to the investors. And again, I need to remind everyone, as much as we complain, this ecosystem is barely 10 years old in terms of the tech. We're barely 10 years old. I mean, when I raised the Wamda Capital Fund in 2015, there was, Danny was there, and MEVP was there, and sorry if I missed anyone else, but I don't remember that there was anyone else. And our sovereign wealth funds were not even thinking about us. I mean, the UAE's sovereign wealth funds and the Saudi sovereign wealth, we were begging them to pay attention to this space, literally begging them. And look what happened now. Once they decided that this is happening, and then they accelerated it to take it to the next level, and this fund is at the core of that story, right? The private sector created the ecosystem, so we need to pay tribute to them. Really, we carried it on our shoulders with little institutional money and a massive amount of fundraising time. And so I mean, and that's belief. So if anybody wants to complain about the private sector, no, we do take risk, and we are at the forefront of this story, and we've been preaching this narrative for such a long time. Regionally, in the city, globally, wherever we went, we talked about that this is the place to be. And so now we're handing the baton, even though we're still in the race, but we're handing the baton to Khalfan and our friends, and we want to run with you. And we're so happy that you're joining the race.
We're talking about the private sector's historical role in building the ecosystem. How about the current role that regulators and authorities are playing in not just helping and assisting startups, but also setting good governance and example and becoming the leader, the thought leadership in areas such as ESG and other items?
Definitely the conversation about risk is an important one, and changing the perspective, what to consider, like climate and other things. But also, if I give some feedback to the VC community, since we have you all here, what I would like to see more, and we see some early starting points of this in the region and in UAE, is I'd love to see more investment in businesses that don't exist globally, that don't have traction, that are very risky from a financial point of view, but are extremely important for the ecosystem or for the bigger vision and the bigger efforts that we have. So how do we change that? And that can be coming from the corporate side, from the venture capital side, any side. But I think that conversation of, looking not just at traction, the returns, but actually on what does that mean in the longer term, and bringing global businesses from here. And we're starting to see some of those, and I'm really excited about that part. And also having cutting-edge ideas, or we did, with the Dubai Sustainable Finance Working Group, we did a report on ESG innovation. We mapped over 3,000 companies globally and mapped them against the SDGs. You can download it from the website. In the UAE, the highest funded one is around the SDG of Zero Hunger, which is food security, which is Pure Harvest Smart Farms. Very exciting. There's many others where we would want to see those kind of stories. And again, if it comes now to what are their struggles are many. And I think as governmental regulators and authorities and enablers and platforms, we have a big role to play. I think the main role we have to play is to empower, enable, to listen, and create initiatives and regulations around that both balance the opportunity and also other considerations that private sector might not always look at. And we've done a lot. I think this morning, we also launched the DIFC Launchpad, which unlocks corporate and venture studios, a new model that also enables some of those higher risk, maybe that don't yet have tractions, startups or ideas to come to life without the traditional model. We've seen a lot on education. I think one of the big things that we're trying to drive is education, both educating about the side of the regulation, where the regulator comes from, as much as educating the regulators about technology. Events like the Metaverse Assembly are very important to educate everybody around the topic. Same things like other events we're running with family businesses and so on, bringing really everybody to the table. I think what's unique about this region is really the entrepreneurship at the core, from the government, from the leadership, from the families that built this country up, from the entrepreneurs that built the startup ecosystem up. So we need to really leverage that. And once you bring everybody together, the speed of making the change happen is unparalleled. You don't have that anywhere else. So the key is to bring everybody together, drive awareness and understanding, educate, and then funnel the funding and funnel the right policies and things together to make that happen. We have some success stories. I think we just need more.
Well, today we were able to discuss a lot of different and important valid points. One, from increasing the risk appetite for people to be able to capitalize on the growth of the market. Two, be able to speak and have an open dialogue with regulators and authorities to help us improve the ecosystem and also our experience, our combined experiences. And as Fadi mentioned, we also need to be able to engage with more people and continue to drive the ecosystem forward through investments and support. And Christian, as you mentioned again, we need to not just improve our risk appetite, but also we need to widen the risk appetite to earlier stage, from the ideation stage, all the way to the longer hold period investments. With that, I would like to thank you all for joining us on this panel. It's been an absolutely great pleasure, and thank you again for being here with us.
Well, I need to give a piece of advice for everybody in here. I told you we listen to you guys. In most cases, we receive so many good ideas. We are not clever. So give me idea, what exactly you want to do, how do you want me to do it, because it will help you to foster. So you don't say, I throw this to His Excellency Khalfan or His Excellency Abdullah or so on and so forth. So you give me idea with how to implement it, then I'll take it forward to help you into doing this. Please don't talk to me, because I know you have too many things to say.
We'll share Mohammed's details. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Fadi, and thank you, Christian.